Hi, my name is Michael Swartz. I'm going to show you how to bring a logo design into After Effects and begin animating it. So here we are in InDesign, and I do not find InDesign to be the best platform for preparing media for After Effects. You can do it, you can export things out as PDFs, but you have more flexibility in Illustrator. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to copy this logo and switch over to Illustrator and go up to File New, and we'll just paste it into Illustrator. I'm going to switch my presets, my profile to video and film, and change this to be HD 720. If this was indeed to be broadcast quality, you would want to be working at HD 1080. But 720 is a very good platform for doing animation. And the other thing I'm going to change is the transparency grid. So if you open up this advanced tab, we want to turn that off. Click OK. All right, and we'll just hit Command V and paste it, and we can scale this up a little. Okay, these green lines, by the way, are action and title safety lines. The inner green one is indicating which portion of the image the text should be safe within, and this middle one, the middle green line, represents the action safety area. All right, when you paste graphics over from other programs into Illustrator, like we just did from InDesign to Illustrator, clipping masks are created automatically around different parts of the design. And you can reveal that by going to View and then turning on Outline Mode or Command Y. Toggling Preview and Outline Mode will always show you the clipping bounding box. And you can see, here's one. If I grab this clipping mask, watch what happens. I just moved like a bunch of the letters because they all happen to be sharing the same clipping mask. So I want to select those and get rid of them. So to do that, you select it just by clicking and dragging around the corner there and go to Object, Clipping Mask, Release. Now we can grab those and hit Delete. Now hit Command Y again, and you can see our logo is still intact. All of the letters are still there, but we've removed the clipping mask. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is grab the bottom type here, Unlimited, Command X, and we'll make a new layer and paste it into this new layer. We can call it Logo Type Unlimited and hit Command F to paste in place. And this Avanti Pix type will do the same thing. Command X, we'll call this Logo Type Avanti Pix, and Command F to paste it in place. And this one's already in a layer, so we'll just call this Logo Sun. Okay, so now we can save this document, and fortunately for us, this process is actually very easy nowadays. We can just save this as a native Illustrator file, and it should work just fine. Let's see. We'll navigate to our folder for our project, and let's make a new folder. We'll call this Avanti Pix, and name the file itself Avanti Pix Logo Import version 01A. Okay, save. All of the defaults are fine. Click OK. Let's Command Tab over to After Effects now. So After Effects has three main areas by default, all of which can be, you can make your own workspaces and use some of the preset ones, but I've just got the all panels turned on right now. We have the project window, we have our composition window, and our timeline. And the composition, as the name suggests, is where we compose our design, our animations, and our graphics. And down here under the timeline is where we can access individual layers on the timeline and animate each individual layer. So over here we have to import in our footage, and I'm going to make a folder that or a system that matches my Finder system. So I have a folder called Source. Let's take a look at this. So here in my project folder, I have a Source folder, and then I have a Logos folder, and then the Avanti Pix folder. So I'm going to match the same thing. I'm going to make a new folder here, and we'll call it logos, and that will go inside source. And we'll make another one and call this Avanti Pics. All right. Now, inside that folder, that's where we're going to put our media. So I'm going to go to File, and then Import, File, and you can see the command key for it is Command-I. And here is our file. And I recommend, since we've already set up the page in Illustrator, and it's using that HD 720 format, we can actually select composition here, and it will remember all of those size settings from Illustrator, and simultaneously create a composition with separate layers of the things that we just made in Illustrator. So let's click OK. And you can see it created a composition. I'm going to rename the comp actually. Let's call it comp, not coomp, comp, and we'll call this Avanti Pics. Okay. And it has a folder here with the 3 layers that we set up, and we can expand the window here a little bit so we can read the full name. And you can rename these if you want. You can move them, and After Effects will remember where you put them. However, if you move them to a different place in the Finder, After Effects will promptly forget everything. So, and you'll have to reconnect all of the broken links. So it's okay to move everything inside of After Effects, but be careful about moving things in the Finder after you've already brought them in. So if I double click on the comp that was automatically created, this is what we see. And by default, the background is black. And you can change that up under composition, composition settings, and you could change it down here, as well as the size and the pixel aspect ratio, your frame rate. You can do all the timing stuff here, your duration. For now, let's just change this background color to white and click OK. Okay, let's do a little bit of cleanup here. When we imported in the footage, it added a suffix to the names of our layers here. And I want to get rid of that redundancy. I don't need those things. So I'm going to hit to select a name and rename it. What you do is you select it and then hit return. And let's just get rid of that. And next one, hit return. And get rid of the slash and the file name. Don't need it. Okay. Now, the next thing I just want to point out briefly, as before we start animating, when we were in Illustrator and we used that preset with the file new, and we set the size to be this HDV preset, it automatically displayed the title and action safety lines for us. And you can do the same thing in After Effects, and that toggle is right here. So if you click on this, and you can activate title action safety. I'm going to turn it off for now. Okay, let's talk about how to animate in After Effects. So down here on the bottom is our comp timeline. Every comp has its own timeline, and you can actually embed other comps within this comp. So we could make another logo composition and integrate it with this logo's composition. Everything can be shared. You can reuse these assets as many times as you like, and it's not necessarily going to add too much space or file size. It's just a link. That's all it is. These are all relative links. Now, down here on the bottom, in our timeline, there are 3 icons in the bottom left. And these just hide and show different aspects of this panel. So if I click on this one, it's going to basically collapse all of these input-output duration sliders. right here. And then this one right here is for the transform controls, or transfer controls pane rather. So when we're talking about like modes, like ways to blend images together using mathematical operations, modes, just like blending modes in Photoshop, they're all here, and you can collapse those to get them out of the way if you're not dealing with that kind of information or dealing with that kind of work. And then this one over here is for the actual layer switches. And these things toggle quality, for example. So I could turn these, click on these multiple times until you get this jagged view, and you can see it's actually going to speed up the display, but it decreases the quality of the display at the same time. So this is helpful for doing really heavy lifting, and you can toggle those on and off. Another one that's important for vector illustrations, when you bring in artwork, it might not always look like the highest quality if you're scaling the graphic, and to remedy that, you turn these on. And this basically, if you hover over it, it tells you it's going to continuously rasterize your vector graphic to look nice and smooth and clean. Obviously, if you turn these on, it's going to demand more from your CPU. So you'll have to play that game of going back and forth, toggling it on and off, depending on how fast your computer is. So animation. Every single layer has its own transform controls. So if you click on this little triangle here to the left of the name of the layer and go into transform, you can see these are the basic ones that we have. We can change the coordinates of the anchor point, which is basically where the center point of any element is. So for example, this one right here, it's right here, up here in the middle. That's the anchor point. The position is actually where it is. So you have two values, X and Y, X being horizontal, Y being up and down. Scale, of course, X and Y as well. Rotation there are two values here. The one on the left is, if you change that to 1, it will be a full 360 degrees. If we just type in 1, that's a full 360 degree turn. But the number next to that is 0 through 360. So if you want to rotate something more than one time, you could type in the base value here and then the sub angle value here. And then opacity, how transparent something is. So those are the basic controls that we have on all three of these layers that we've brought into After Effects. In a little while, I'll show you how to animate type that was created natively in After Effects, and you have even more control. But for now, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to start off by animating the sun, the logo sun, okay? And I'm just going to animate it slowly fading up, okay? So I'm going to set a key on the opacity. So I'm going to click on that once and change its value to 0. So it appears to have disappeared. Now I'm going to move my timeline head. This blue icon here is the playback head, and over to frame 6 of our animation. And now I'm going to increase this up to 100. Now I could click on it and type 100, or I can click and drag and to the right and bring it all the way to 100 that way as well. Now After Effects will automatically tween the animation between those two keyframes, and here are the keyframes right here. And you can double click on them, and you can numerically type in a value as well as over here. Now let's say we want to change the duration of our animation. 6 frames is really short. So in our composition, let's go to composition settings. And let's change our composition settings to be, instead of 6 frames, let's do 6 seconds. So we're just going to type 6 here and change that to 0, and then click OK. Now, you didn't see anything, but if we zoom out here using this zoom frame level here, you'll see that actually now we have a much longer timeline to play with. And I'm going to select all of these layers by using my Shift key. So you click once and then Shift, and then hit the end key on my keypad. So this is over above the arrows on your keyboard. Or you can click and drag that way as well. But there are some really handy shortcuts. One is home and one is end. These two are very handy when setting in and out points on the timeline. And I'm just going to hit the end key, so we're all the way at the end. And I'm going to hold down Option and press the right bracket arrow. And the bracket is the one that is to the left of the backslash. Okay. Now, what that did is that changed the duration of our timeline so that it will stay present. Before, if we played along the timeline, they would disappear, right? Because there's nothing there. So we needed to, let's redo the composition settings, zoom out. And I'm going to just grab all of those, hit the end key and Option, right bracket. Okay. So now the footage will last for the entire 6 seconds. Now this animation, these two keys are only 6 frames long, so that's less than, that's like a quarter of a second. So let's bring this out to be about 2 seconds long. And now you can see our animation is playing for a longer time. And you can hit the 0 key on your number pad to play a preview. Hit the home key, hit 0 to play it. Okay, now perhaps I want this to maybe animate upward a little bit as well. So I'm going to go to the first frame, so you can hit the home key, and that will bring your playback head to the first frame. And I'm going to key the position. And I'm going to just move it down a little bit. And if you want to see this, you can increase the opacity so you can actually see where you're moving this. Okay, so I'm going to have it like, let's say right there. And let's bring this back down to 0 for the opacity. And then go out to the second of this animation and set a key there as well. And to set this second key, I'm going to use this button here, and that will add or remove a keyframe. So now I'm going to lift that up. And you can see now this is what we have for an animation. Now this animation is very linear, and if we wanted to maybe make it slow down as it gets to this final frame of the animation, we want it to ease out. You can do that. If you right click on that keyframe, you can actually change the, use this keyframe assistant, you can change the tweening, the timing and spacing of this. And I'm going to just choose Easy Ease. And the shortcut for that is F9, very popular and well-used shortcut in After Effects. So now you can see as it plays, it slowly slows down. Okay, now let's move in some of the type. All right, Avanti picks. Let's start there. With the Avanti picks, let's do something similar. Open that up, and I'm going to change the opacity to 0 and go out to frame 2 and bring that up to 1. All right, so now if we play back, we have them all animating at the same time. Let's do unlimited as well. So opacity, and in fact, we can copy paste these keys from this asset. So I'm going to grab both of those keyframes from the Avanti picks, Command C, and then select the unlimited. Make sure your playback head is where you want to start from. It's at the beginning, Command V. And now we have just copied the same animation to the word unlimited. Now it's all happening at the same time. I think it will be more interesting if we offset some of this animation. So I'm going to select these two layers and have them happen after the other animation already starts for the sun. So let's do this. Or perhaps it should be the other way around. Let's instead bring those to the beginning, and we'll instead we'll have the sun come in afterwards. So I'm going to move that in this direction. Okay, let's talk about procedural animation. Procedural animation is basically letting After Effects help us animate complexity, complex animation tasks that are done through just simple mathematical duplication operations. So we have our composition that we've been working on. We need to make a new comp. Let's go to Composition, New Composition. You can have as many comps as you want inside of a project. This one we'll call Comp Procedural FX. Let's leave it at HD 720 square pixels, 24 frames per second. We'll change the duration to 10. Our previous comp was 6 seconds. And let's leave the background color at white. Click OK. You'll see that it added the comp within the folder that we were in, and I want to drag both of these comps out into the root. So I'm going to command click on them and just click and drag into the blank space below. And now we have our comps side by side. This is how I prefer to work. I like to have all my comps easily accessible. If you have a really complicated project, you may need to add subfolders, but generally leaving them loose like this is the fastest way to get at stuff. I'm going to drag the sun logo over into our new composition here. And to start using the procedural animation features of After Effects, we need to convert this to a vector outline. So let's select the layer and then go to Layer, Create Shapes from Vector Layer. So it's hid the logo that we dragged over initially and created a new one, basically a duplicate, that has the traditional transform controls, but it also has additional controls within this contents folder. And if you open up that folder, you'll see that there's a group, and you can rename these if you want. So you could hit return and rename that group to something else. It also has detailed rollouts for the individual paths that are used to make this group. So you could distort or change the shape of this just by animating each individual point on these on this logo. So there's the inside path and the outside path. You can rename those as well. I'm not going to go into detail on the merge paths and so on, but the fill one could be handy for us right now. Let's go into that and change the color to like an orange, goldish type color. Click OK. And let's also look at the transform group. So we have this transform group here that everything comes with in After Effects. Every object has these same controls. But this special little shape outline comes with these additional ones. We can modify the skew, for example. We didn't have that in the other one. And we have skew axis. And we also have this little add button that appears. So right here, as well as up here at the top, we can add procedural type animation effects. If you click on that, let's experiment with the repeater. The repeater is fun because you can create some pretty wild and crazy animations with very minimal effort. So if we open up the repeater, you can see we can change the number of copies. So I'm going to do 10. And I'm going to key the copies and the offset. And let's go out to the third second and set a key for those as well. And the offset here will move it to the other side of the screen. So now we've got this animation. On this frame right here for the first frame, I'm going to change the offset so that it's on the other side. Okay, so we have this pattern. Now, if I move it into the middle of the animation and I go into the transform repeater folder, we can adjust the end opacity, and we can also adjust the scale. You can see how fun this can be. Now, I'm also going to adjust the rotation. So now if we animate this, you can see that After Effects does all of that animation for us. And that's why it's called procedural animation. It's done procedurally behind the scenes. All we had to do was set a few keys, and After Effects is doing all the hard work for us. So let's say we like this animation, and but we want to bring in the type. So let's do that. Let's bring the Avanti Pix and the word unlimited over as well. And I'm going to just move the frames over so that they maybe start a little bit before the third second. And I want to key the transparency of those. So the shortcut for that actually is T. You can remember it for T for transparency. Even though it calls it opacity in After Effects, it's T is the shortcut. So T brings up opacity. I'm going to key both of those, opacity at 0. And then over a little bit past the third second, we'll increase the opacity to 100%. And let's bring that logo sun in again. Actually, we have it here at the bottom. Let's drag this to the top. And I'm going to set the opacity, hit T to bring up the opacity again, set the opacity to be 100%. And right now I don't really like that color. So what I can do is I can change the color by going to Effect and then Fill, Generate and Fill. And we can change the color to be anything that we want. So in this case, let's make it white. And we'll go into the rollout here for the transform and just key that opacity so that it's 0% here. And then we'll move over a little bit and change the opacity to 100% there. So now it looks like this. And if you want to have the type also be white, you could do that as well. I'm just going to select both of those. Actually, we can go up here and copy this fill effect just by clicking on it, Command C, copying it, going down here and Command V. So now everything is white. All right, now perhaps we want to add some additional effects. Maybe we want to add some sort of vignette, perhaps. Let's experiment with that. Let's make a new solid. Okay, and solids are a very common thing to create in After Effects because you can add effects to them and affect things below them, and they're kind of nice empty containers that you can add things to. So we'll go to Layer, New, Solid. The shortcut for that is Command Y. That's a good one to memorize. I'm just going to leave it as a black solid. That's fine. Click OK. Again, it's not going to really matter because what we're going to do is we'll make our own effects on top of this. So I'm going to go to Generate, and then let's do a gradient ramp. And we need to change it to a radial type ramp. And let's swap these colors. So this first one will be white, and the second one will be black. Click OK. Let's zoom out a little bit with the scroll wheel. And we do want the start of the ramp to be in the middle, and we want the end ramp to be, let's say, down here somewhere. I'm trying to create like a vignette type of effect. So you can move that center point around, but I want it right in the middle. And this is where we can affect the shape of the vignette. There's lots of different ways to make a vignette in After Effects. This is just one method out of many, many. Okay, so now we have this black solid here. I'm going to rename it in the layers. So I'm going to hit Return, and we'll call this Vignette. And I'm going to change the blending mode. Just like in Photoshop, where you can blend layers together, you can do the same sorts of compositing effects in After Effects. So I'm going to right click on this and go to blending mode and multiply. And I'm going to bring this to the top of everything. Maybe the color, it shouldn't be black. Maybe we should warm it up a little bit. So now it's a little more stylized. Okay, I hope this was helpful.